Scafidi here.
Guzikowski here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
And Commissioner Correll is excused. Item 2 is minutes of the July 26, 2016 meeting.
Hickman makes a motion that we approve the minutes of the of the July 26, 2016 meeting.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo abstains.
Avich, aye.
Scafidi, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Item 3 is significant common council actions. Carrie.
Council discussed in executive session the terms of a proposed development agreement, including a TIF incentive grant for property owned by Bucyrus Wisconsin Property LLC, consisting of approximately 26 acres located at 6744 South Howell Avenue, but no action was taken. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. And moving on to item 4, it's a sign appeal hearing. It's a public hearing on a proposed sign appeal for the property at 7003 South Howell Avenue, submitted by Pamela Mehta. It would allow a ground sign not to exceed 12 feet in height and not to exceed 100 square feet on one side or 200 square feet on all sides. Tax key number 734-9028. Pete Wagner will read the public hearing notice.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is the City of Oak Creek notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held on Tuesday, August 9th, 2016 at 6 p.m. at the Oak Creek City Hall Common Council Chambers, 8040 South 6th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. Appellant Pamela Mehta, tax key number 734-9028. Property location is 7001 South Howell Avenue. Is requesting a variance from section 17.0706 sub D, which states ground signs shall not exceed 8 feet in height and not exceed 100 feet on any one side, nor more than 200 square feet on all sides for any premise. If granted, the variance would allow the applicant to install a ground sign not to exceed 12 feet in height and 100 square feet on any one side, nor more than 200 square feet on all sides. Zoning of the property is B4 Highway Business District. All interested parties wishing to be heard are invited to be present. Dated this 21st day of July 2016, Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, Mayor Steve Scafidi, Chairman. This is a public hearing. It is now open. If anyone wishes to have comments, they can step up to the podium, state your name, and address the Plan Commission with your concerns.
Make 3 calls for public comment on this item. First call. Second call. Third and final call for public hearing on the sign appeal for the property at 7003 South Howell Avenue. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close the public hearing, move to discussion of new business, and the first item is item 5A. It's a consideration of a request for sign appeal for the property at 7003 South Howell Avenue, submitted by Pamela Mehta, that would allow a ground sign not to exceed 12 feet in height and not to exceed 100 square feet on one side or 200 square feet on all sides. Tax key number 734-9028. Pete.
All right, as I mentioned in the public hearing notice, the applicant is looking for a variance from the sign height for ground signs. If you're familiar with the site, it's the medical complex that's on Howell Avenue, north of Rawson. And right now, they currently have an 8-foot monument sign, which is illustrated on your screen on the top of the page. And as we talked about at an earlier Plan Commission, they are proposing a building number 2 that is located right behind this building. And we worked with the applicant, tried to figure out alternatives to what could be done and still meet the criteria that is used to determine a variance, which is included in your report. So the applicant believes that this is the best course of action to pursue, and to add 4 feet to the existing ground sign, that this would, by doing this, would not cause confusion or cluttering of signs that would be, be confusing to drivers driving up and down Howell Avenue. And so the applicant is looking to get a variance to allow for a 4-foot addition, so that would be a 12-foot monument sign instead of a 4-foot, and it is just illustrated on the second picture at the bottom of the screen. Having said that, the staff does not make recommendations on sign codes, and that the code does state that the Plan Commission any decision should be based on the following criteria, A through E, that's included in your report. Mr. Mayor.
So without the variance, the applicant could put up 2 monument signs, correct?
No.
They couldn't?
You're only allowed 1 monument sign per
Even though there's a
parcel.
whole nother development in the back.
Right, it's only 1 parcel, 1 monument sign per parcel. So putting a second one would be, we looked at it, would have to be either on the north side of the entrance which would be too close to that side lot line. And there's also a 15-foot utility easement along the front. That's why the current monument sign is pushed back closer to the building. There was thought about putting it on the south side of the building. If you're looking at the site plan or the location map, that we would put it down to the lower part. But then you'd be past the entrance of the development when you realize that building 2 is located at a different address. So the thought was to go with an extra tall sign, keeps the right-of-way less cluttered instead of trying to do that.
Open up to the commission for questions. Alderman Bekavich?
I guess I'll start out. It seems like a reasonable alternative. Pete kind of laid out the options for it. The 12-foot sign doesn't look too bad. It looks a little busy, but given the fact that there's going to be 12 tenants in there, what are you going to do? If you refresh my memory, Pete, I think we made this exception or something similar at the Pick and Save on Ryan Road too, didn't we? Where we went high.
That variance was for a second monument sign at a second entrance for the veterinary clinic. So there was a east and a west entrance to that strip mall. And so that applicant requested a variance from the side setback as well as a second monument sign due to the, I believe, the unique layout of that site.
Thank you. Well, we obviously don't enjoy this luxury here, so I think it's a pretty good alternative. Again, it's the same sign, just a little taller, so I'm happy with it, and I'd support it.
Okay, Commissioner Siebert?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Pete, what's the size of the sign that they have at Marcus Theater?
Off the top of my head, I believe that's 14 feet, maybe 17 feet tall. And that was a variance that was granted due to, in that particular case, they went from a 25-foot tall sign, and they came back and said, we'll make a less, we'll make it a directory sign. We'll make it more simple and identify the 3 businesses that are there, as well as having a EMC board.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chandler?
Is the applicant here? I have a quick question for you.
Name and address for the record.
My name's Peter Ogorick, architect with Perspective Design, 11525 West North Avenue, Wauwatosa.
So how many tenants are in this area total?
The building in the front, I believe that building was designed for 8 tenants, if I remember correctly. The building in the back, I think, is 7. So 7 in the back, and I believe 8 in the front.
So the number of spaces that you have on there is it 16? So is there one
So,
tenant
so it
without
must be
any
9.
space?
Must be 9 in the front and 7 in the back.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so we laid it out to have basically a sign panel for each tenant space.
And also with the letters, are there any differences that will help differentiate each tenant? Because that is a lot of information on one side.
We'll be discussing the balance of the sign plan, I think is the next item on the agenda. For that portion on the building signage, we're trying to leave that open so that individual tenants can have their corporate colors and their logo and all that stuff. On the monument sign in the front, we've intentionally tried to keep the signage to have, a uniform color effect there so that it, to respond to the comment earlier that it's not any more cluttered than it already may be. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Commissioner Dickman?
If they went to a second, sign of this type, that would require a variance also, right?
Correct.
So whether we have this variance or whether we do a variance for that, and I'm all for this. I think it's better to have just one sign, although there's quite a few people on there. I don't know if you want, I don't want to talk the sign now, but I don't know if you want to differentiate on the sign so that people knew which ones were in one building versus the other. I don't know if that's some option. Just a comment, that's all.
Okay.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah,
Commissioner Siebert?
how many tenants do you have in the back? The building,
The building in the back is designed for 7 tenants. So we don't have any tenants right now, but it's designed to accommodate 7.
and on your sign, I see that it only had space for 6 tenants.
Yeah, that's because we had one extra sign panel from the front building. If you look at I think we're 9. So we have 10 sign panels that were on there initially, but the building was designed for 9 tenants. So we've got a balance now between the number of panels and the number of spaces that are designed into the 2 buildings.
Anybody else? Seeing nothing, hearing nothing, motion on 5A.
Is there a motion required, Pete?
Yes.
There is?
we
Okay,
need
because
a-
I thought that would be covered in 5B maybe.
5B is the sign plan for a multi-tenant building,
okay.
which is required.
Commissioner Dickman challenging the chair? Go ahead.
Oh, you making it?
Oh, go ahead, Pete.
Bukavich will make a motion that the Plan Commission approve the proposed sign plan for Building 2, granting a variance from 8 foot to 12 foot at 7001 South Howell Avenue.
Guzekowski will second.
Guzekowski seconds, roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Bukavich, aye.
Speedy, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
And moving to item 5B is a sign plan review of a proposed sign plan submitted by Pamela Mehta for the commercial building at 7003 South Howell Avenue, tax key number 734-9028. Pete?
Yes, thank you. I'm just bringing up that plan. All right. The reason we had the variance prior to the sign plan is because in the sign plan is included a 12-foot monument sign. So before we went to the sign plan, we should make sure that we agreed that the monument sign was acceptable. As per code, every multi-tenant, 3-tenant building or more is required to present a sign plan to the Plan Commission for approval. And the purpose is to get a theme or a sense of consistency among all the signs for the multiple tenants that may be present at the site. So there was a building or a sign plan approved for Building 1. This is going to be the sign plan for Building 2. So anything that's approved tonight is going to be specifically for Building number 2 and for the monument sign. And I just would like to share my opinion that the applicant provided a very robust and detailed sign plan that really details not only the style, the size, the quantity, the height. It also took a lot of the existing sign code from included it verbatim into this plan. And the reason I take the extra time to say that is that when I looked at the sign plan for Building number 1, it was like, well, go no larger than 34 square feet and have channel letters. That was it. And so I just want to give credit where credit's due that they did take a lot of time to go through it. Hopefully you had the opportunity to go through it. What's really nice about this plan is that in the future when tenants come forward, I can just pull out this plan and review it, and I'm not trying to compare the plan to the code. It's going to be a very convenient document. And I just want to point out the differences between Building 1 and Building 2 in that this plan talks about a 12-foot monument sign. We did address that at the earlier agenda item, so the commission did approve that, so that is now okay to have in the sign plan. And secondly, the way they want to calculate wall signs is a little bit different than our rectangle or box, but the way they proposed it when we broke it down, they can have potentially 7 tenants, and so the largest sign can only be 43.3 square feet, which our code says it can't be more than 20% or no larger than 100 square feet. And so with the potential for 7 tenants, it can be 43 square feet. And so that's slightly larger than Building 1. Building 1 only allowed 31.6, but staff felt that due to the location behind Building 1 and their lack of visibility, if we allowed a slightly larger wall sign for Building number 2, that would be more than acceptable and not necessarily break the character of the whole development. So having said that, staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the proposed sign plan for Building 2 at 7001 South Howell Avenue. Mr. Mayor.
Open up for questions or comments.
I have a question
Mr. Chandler?
for Pete. So with all the signs, the wall signs, the window graphics, and signage, and I think those are all of them. The monument sign we took care of, does it comply to the Oak Creek requirements? Everything except the 12-foot sign?
Yes, yes, and you know, one of the interesting things they proposed was actually limiting the total amount of square footage. So I'm guessing that since there's a 7 tenant, they have 6 tenants, they're talking, you know, if someone takes up 2 spaces, they could actually potentially have a slightly larger sign than somebody who has just one tenant space. They did cap it at 240 square feet. So if the first person comes in, you know, maximizes it, it's only going to hurt their ability to rent out a space to the last tenant if they get a really small sign. So I think they took a very comprehensive approach to this. I believe they did their best to comply with the spirit of what exists, and they did use a lot of the existing code and placed it in their sign plan. So
Thank you.
Alderman Bekavich?
Really, just a comment. I have to agree with the planning department on this one. It's a well-laid-out plan. I think it fits. I think it's justifiable to have it a little bit bigger based on the location of building 2. And again, I'd like to just compliment our planning staff for working with the applicant to get to the stage they are when they present this to us. Very good job for you guys. Makes it very clean and easy to make a decision for me on this one. And again, I'll support it.
Mr. Johnston?
Just a question for the applicant. On the monument sign, the actual letter height, do you have any stipulations on what that height's going to be? And it's got to fit in that panel, but what is the height of those letters?
Yeah, I don't think we covered that in the sign plan, but the way that the sign is set up, you know, and all the other tenants that are already in there, I think the precedent has been set that, you know, that the sign panel that you get is the sign panel you
You
get.
know how big that panel is?
I think that it's 18 inches tall per panel.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? I echo the other comments. Thanks for working with staff and looking at our guidelines in advance of your proposed signage requests. Seeing no other questions or comments, I will ask for a motion.
Dickman, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Wally.
Dickman makes a motion, the Plan Commission approve the proposed sign plan for Building 2 at 7001 South Howell Avenue.
Chandler seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Trillo, aye.
Kivich, aye.
Speedy, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Good luck.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you,
no
staff,
problem.
as well.
5C is a sign plan review of a proposed sign plan submitted by Kathy Kramer, Oak Creek Franklin Joint School District for the Forest Ridge Elementary School at 2200 West Drexel Avenue, text key number 785-9004. Pete?
thank you. As part of any institutional sign plan, Plan Commission does have the authority to review and approve all signs in that zoning district, and that is the reason why the school plan is here before you tonight. They have 2 signs. One is a wall sign. It does comply with the standards within our code. Let me just grab my thing here. You know, the standards do state that that wall sign shall not exceed 12 inches outside the building's wall surface. That is fine. Does not exceed more than 20% of the wall area, which it does not. It does not exceed 300 square feet in area, and it does not exceed 5 feet in height. Overall, the wall sign is 82.5 square feet in area, 2 feet tall, and less than, as I said earlier, 20% of the area. This sign is not illuminated and is constructed out of aluminum and will be placed on the south elevation of the building. The second sign that is being brought before you tonight is a monument sign. This sign also meets the zoning code for sign regulations. Get that up there, you're right. And so the sign does not exceed 10 feet in height, which is the maximum. It's not larger than 64 square feet in area. It is located well within the setbacks of 10 feet from the right-of-way or other lot lines and complies with the traffic safety visibility requirements set forth in section 170401. What's not shown on this is the landscape plan. I do have it in your packet. I can bring it up for your review here. This is just a clip of it. This just shows some shrubs that are going to be around it and some flowers and some annuals, which is the minimum requirement for this type of sign. Having said that, staff does recommend approval of the sign plan proposed by the school district for Forest Ridge Elementary School located at 2200 West Drexel Avenue. Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Pete. Citing new 7th elementary school for the district. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Chandler.
I have a question for the applicant.
Kathy Kramer is here, or the representative. Name and address for the record.
Bob Weigert from Epstein Union Architects, 333 East Chicago Street, Milwaukee.
The wall sign, can you give a little more information in regards to colors and relationship to the monument sign?
Sure. The wall sign is a aluminum color, which basically matches the window system that we've got. If you've driven by the building, it's just a clear anodized aluminum. The monument sign has a blue, it's an aluminum sign as well. The legs, if you will, on it are a painted blue, so it's a baked on finish. And then the actual field where the letters are, that's also a similar finish. It is not a clear anodized, but it is like a silver type color to it.
So the wall sign will be the same as the background sign of this monument?
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Just
Alderman
one,
Markievich.
and doesn't exactly pertain to the sign, but it's for Kathy. All our schools have mascots. Has this particular school picked a mascot?
They did, and I can't remember what it is. I think the parent group worked on that when they decided the name. I'm not sure if
I
it's
would
been
suggest
extended.
the Butler Garter Snakes.
I would, I think that came up as a suggestion, but I'm not sure.
Just
I'll have
a
to
little
follow up with
humor.
you on that. I can't remember if Mr. Midtake did that. I know that was in discussions, and we do have the ribbon cutting scheduled for
The
August
land had a
29th,
history
so-
of Butler Garter
so you
Snakes.
should have that. Great.
Anything else?
Nope, looks good.
Motion.
Kavich will make a motion that the Plan Commission approve the sign plan for Forest Ridge Elementary School located at 2200 West Drexel Avenue.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Furlough, aye.
Kavich, aye.
VDI.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Good luck.
Thank
See
you.
See you on the 27th. Moving on, 5D is a certified survey map review submitted by Kelly Gallagher, Self Storage Ventures LLC, combining the properties located at 6304 and 6340 South Howell Avenue and 137, 147, and 209 East College Avenue, tax key numbers as listed. Carrie.
This application is to combine the 5 parcels into one 6.2873 acre parcel. This is the proposed survey map that is shown on the screen right now. As you can see, one parcel, the wetlands are shown. There is a requirement for the utility easement to be shown along the north and west. I was also told that the state may have some requirements for access on the west side. It may be a restriction. We will find out once the state has reviewed and completed the review of the certified survey map. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Kelly Gallagher of Self Storage Ventures LLC for the properties at 6304 and 6340 South Howell Avenue, 137, 147, and 209 East College Avenue be approved subject to conditions 1 and 2. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Any questions? No questions, motion.
Kavich will make a motion that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Kelly Gallagher, Self Storage Ventures LLC for the properties at 6304 and 6340 South Howell Avenue, 137, 147, and 209 East College be approved with the following conditions. 1, that all easements are shown and clearly labeled on the map prior to recording. 2, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordination, geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to the recording.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Furlough, aye.
Kavich, aye.
VDI.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
All right, go forward. Item 5E is a right-of-way vacation request submitted by HSI Oak Creek Partners LLC on behalf of Mary Volker, Margaret Munson, and Life Creek Church, Inc. for a portion of the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 10, affecting 2100, 2200, and 2280 West Drexel Avenues. Carrie.
This is a request to vacate a portion of the existing public right-of-way. In 2010, a CSM was approved that dedicated the 70-foot wide right-of-way for public street purposes, and that was actually done by the church. This is an exhibit showing the part of the public street right-of-way that would be vacated if the Plan Commission and the council were to approve this. Instead of having it be a public road, the proposal is to make a private road that would not necessarily follow this exact pattern. It's related to the multifamily development for these properties. There is a requirement that was requested by the utility that a 25-foot water main easement be depicted on all of the submitted recording the documents for this property. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the 70-foot wide unimproved right-of-way affecting a portion of the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 10 between 2200 and 2280 West Drexel and between 2100 and 2280 West Drexel be vacated after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
All right, right-of-way request, right-of-way vacation request. Questions from the commission? I also have two audience members who have requested this.
Yeah,
Commissioner
I'd
Chandler, and then I'll go to Commissioner Seibert.
A quick question, Carrie. So can you just show us the area that's being considered for vacation, to be vacated?
It's the
Is it
area
the
that
complete
has.
circle?
Yes, it's the area that's circled. It's
okay.
that portion, that right-of-way right there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Seibert.
Yeah, I'd like to know the reason why they want to make this a private road.
I will defer to the applicant.
Applicant is here. Name and address for the record.
Tony DeRosa with HSI Properties, 18500 West Corporate Drive in Brookfield. The reason for a private road here, I think that goes back to earlier in this year when we were, I think, before both the Plan Commission as well as the council, and it was determined that a public road here would not be necessary to be built per a public road standard. As a private road, us as the owner of the property and the developer are responsible for maintaining it, snow, maintenance, and so none of that cost burden would fall on the city.
So you don't have any problem with the easements with the utility then?
No, so our certified survey map that's before you this evening shows a water main easement that runs through the property, and that's one of the comments that was on the staff report as well.
Like the road?
No, because the water main will be built as a public water main. That's a requirement from the engineering department from the city.
Thank you.
Alderman Guzikowski. Commissioner Dickman.
I'm sorry. I don't have
You're
any,
good?
Steve, sorry.
Nothing on your side? Anything on his side? Come on up, Mr. Degner. Pull the mic down. Thank you, sir.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. As you've heard in the past, this 645 parking space development has nothing but traffic bottlenecks, not only when it's built out, not only on Pennsylvania, but on Drexel. It was testified 2 or 3 meetings ago that this property was originally laid out to have 2 entrances and exits from Drexel Avenue. But no, now it's going to be combined with 1. And to make this very difficult, they are going to make a private road out of this. Just imagine now, if you've got 645 apartments, surely you would have a group of students having to wait for a bus pickup, just like there is on Pennsylvania Avenue now. They had to make a special path across the road for the students for pickup. Now, private roads? No, the students will have to walk from the farthest reaches. And congregate at the entry. There's no provision for that along the road. There's no provision for this. We need a public road there. And not only that, but just think of all the utilities that have to be handled for each individual party in this area, all coming out of a private road which is not built to public specifications. It doesn't require any long-term, especially with the developer selling out to someone else. It doesn't require any long-term upkeep. And as I mentioned before, safety is the important thing. Not only that, but just think once, how can we have a safe community if we've got 640 parking spaces as a build-out and somebody wants to have a rumble? All they have to do is block off one road, two roads, and no one has access. This cannot stand. Safety of our community is most important. The safety of our children, and making this a private road through this cannot stand. We have private roads for a good reason. Public roads for a good reason, not for the benefit monetarily rise of the developer, but for the individuals that are living in our city. We need public roads. We need safety. As I mentioned before, we need electronic signals for these multiple cars and for the buses to stop and to pick up children, as well as these utility pickup collection vehicles. This cannot stand.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Miranda, do you have anything to add? Nothing? Any questions or other comments from the commission?
Yeah, I got some.
Okay.
As far as the road goes, public versus private, we just heard a rendition of a very passionate person on protecting public right-of-way and the need for public roads. We have over 200 miles of public roads within the city, just to be clear. This is a private road. This is going to save taxpayers money. We're very prudent about this. This is no different than any condo development, standard development we do. It can still be accessed by the public, but it is maintained by the private ownership. As far as upkeep of that road goes, it will be demanded by those that rent it and those that own it. So the city is off the hook for that burden. Again, the easements will be there for us to access publicly. This is really just pretty standard operating procedure for development of this sort. So I'll leave it at that.
Well said, Commissioner Dickman.
I just want to say, I think we're way off base on this. All we're talking about right now is vacation
Yes.
and property. Many of these comments could come later in our discussions. So I'd like to make a motion just on the vacation of property,
Sounds good. Go ahead.
that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council that the 70-foot wide unimproved right-of-way affecting of a portion of the southeast one quarter of the southwest one quarter of Section 10 between 2200 and 2280 West Drexel Avenue and between 2100 and 2280 West Drexel Avenue be vacated after a public hearing.
Guzekowski will second.
Guzekowski seconds, roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Kavich, aye.
VDI.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Moving on to item 5F is a official map amendment. Review a proposed amendment to the official map for a portion, 48,383 square feet of the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 10, which includes mapped unimproved right-of-way between 2200 and 2280 West Drexel Avenue, between 2100 and 2280 West Drexel Avenue. Carrie.
This is in regards to the same location, but there are officially mapped streets that affect all of the properties that are proposed for the multifamily development. So this would allow for access roads and driveways for the entire development to be private. The official map amendment does not impact any properties except those under control of the applicants. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the official map for the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 10, Town 5 North, Range 22 East be amended as discussed and illustrated after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Any questions on the changes to the official map? Commissioner Chandler.
I have a question for planning. So if all these roads are private, what are the requirements for private roads versus public roads? Are they similar?
They are different, and in fact, I would like to defer to Commissioner Johnston, who knows more about that than I.
Commissioner Johnston.
The private roads that usually are constructed without the right-of-way requirements that the public roads have. They're able to get their utilities in. Water is typically the only one that goes in as a public requirement regardless of where it's at. And that's just for the service that's required for the water. Engineering recommends that this is a private road, but we're fine with this development and approve it as it is.
Thank you.
Anything else? Motion.
Johnson moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the official map for the southeast quarter, the southwest quarter, Section 10, Town 5 North, Range 22 East be amended as discussed, illustrated after a public hearing.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
David Chai.
Speedy, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
And item 5G is a certified survey map review submitted by HSI Oak Creek Partners LLC on behalf of Mary Volker, Margaret Munson, and Life Creek Church, Inc. for the properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2100, 2200, and 2280 East Drexel Avenue, tax key numbers as listed. Carried.
Related to the same property, this would reconfigure the existing 4 lots into 3 lots of compliant size for the development. This is the first page of the proposed certified survey map. It's a little bit not necessarily misleading. It's just in a different configuration. So if I rotate this for you. Now you'll see that Drexel Avenue is on the southern part of the page, and you will be going into the property from Drexel Avenue. This shows lots 1, 2, and 3. Minor changes may be forthcoming to the lot lines to ensure setback compliance. Staff has been working with the applicant on a couple of setback requirement issues with the site plan with regards to parking. We continue to work through those. The changes are so minor that they wouldn't even necessarily show up in this map that the Plan Commission would be able to make a determination on. There is also a driveway for the Life Creek Church property on the southwest corner of Lot 1 that is not shown. It will need to appear on the CSM prior to recording. It will need a cross-access easement. Wetlands also do not appear on Lot 1. That will be required to be shown on all pages as required as they show up on the property. There's a public right-of-way along Drexel Avenue that needs to be shown at 65 feet wide, and also the 25-foot water main easement for public water, as we've discussed in the other items. Applicant is aware of these things. These are minor changes. Staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Mary Velker, Margaret Munson, Life Creek Church, Inc., and HSI Properties, LLC for the properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2100, 2200, and 2280 East Drexel Avenue be approved, subject to conditions 1 through 4. Mr. Mayor.
Questions on the certified survey map?
Steve?
Commissioner Dickman.
And this is divided up into Lot 1 and 2, which is for the 2 phases of the development as far as building the units. And Lot 3 is for the clubhouse, et cetera. Is that a problem, shall we say, from the city standpoint, if they decide to develop property or lot number 1, which would be the first multifamily, and decide not to build on Lot 2 or do the clubhouse Lot 3? Would it be better to have it just as all one lot rather than 3? Just a question.
I believe that staff did have a conversation with the applicants regarding the layout and having multiple lots. My understanding is that the lot layout or the multiple lots is a financing requirement. Lot 3 does have the clubhouse and the pool as you described. I believe that the clubhouse and the pool improvements are required as part of phase 1.
So the only thing that might not happen if they don't sell out units is that lot number 2 might not be built on. Would that be correct?
That is a correct assessment, and also Lot 1, I should say, and Lot 3 have the majority of the development on it. So phase 1, as as it gets constructed, does have a majority of the development.
Applicant is here, name and address for the record.
Tony DeRosa, 18500 West Corporate Drive in Brookfield. That is correct. This financing is driving how a parcel of this nature gets split. The banks want to see phase one as its own tax parcel, phase two separate, and a clubhouse as a third parcel. And she was correct in terms of phase one includes 166 units plus the clubhouse and pool improvements.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, motion on 5G.
David, you'll make, oh, go. Oh, you going?
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
Dick makes a motion, the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Mary Volker, Margaret Munson, Life Creek Church Incorporated, HSI Properties LLC, for the properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2100, 2200, and 2280 East Drexel Avenue be approved with the following conditions. Number one, that all easements are shown and clearly labeled on the map prior to recording. Number two, that the delineated wetlands are shown on all applicable sheets of the map prior to recording. Number three, that the 65-foot wide public right-of-way along Drexel Avenue is shown on the map prior to recording. And number four, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording.
Johnston seconds.
Johnson seconds, roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Malloy.
David Chai.
VDI.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
And last one for HSI. Item 5H is a plan review of site building, landscaping, and lighting plans submitted by HSI Oak Creek Partners LLC on behalf of Mary Volker, Margaret Munson, and Life Creek Church, Inc. for the properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue, 2100, 2200, and 2280 East Drexel Avenue, tax key numbers as listed.
This is for phase one of the two-phase development as we've been discussing. There are 12 two-story residential buildings that will be constructed on Lot 1 along with 2 detached garage buildings. Clubhouse and pool will be on Lot 3. A playground with cultured stone and wood beam pergola and walking paths will also be on the southern part of Lot 1. On your screen right now is the overall concept plan. The red boxes are the proposed locations of the group mailboxes for the buildings. Again, this is the concept plan showing the build out. We are talking about phase one, which is basically everything in dark. There are a couple of buildings and parking areas to the west that are a little bit dark that actually are part of phase two. Basically where the road ends is where the end of phase one is. Parking is sufficient according to code and the requirements for the PUD. There might be some slight modifications to the plans that are required to meet setbacks. We are working with the applicant through these issues, and we continue to do so. All the buildings meet required setbacks. The clubhouse and the residential buildings will be constructed primarily of brick and cultured stone with some fiber cement siding and vertical fiber cement panels. The brick and the stone will need to meet the 4-inch thick requirement per code. Also, the use of fiber cement requires a 3/4 majority approval of the Plan Commission. The garages will be constructed primarily with fiber cement siding and vertical panels. They will have carriage doors and frosted glass windows. On your screen right now is an example of one of the buildings. It's the 11-unit building, showing what the elevations would be. The yellow squares are the proposed locations of the exterior lighting. 65% of the exterior wall area of multifamily residential buildings must be brick or decorative masonry per code. It's up to the Plan Commission whether the fiber cement fulfills this requirement. There are a couple of signs and columns that are proposed at the entrances. One along Drexel and one along the Pennsylvania Avenue entrance. There's one monument sign that's proposed, and that's at the Drexel Avenue entrance, and that would be this sign right here. So again, brick with the name of the proposed development, which is Drexel Ridge. There is a request for the sign to be externally illuminated. That's up to the Plan Commission as to whether or not they want that to be allowed. The columns that are going to be at each of the entrances look like this. We haven't been in discussions with the applicant to reduce the height to match the requirement for monument signs, which is 6 feet, and the applicant has indicated their willingness to reduce the height of these. Also, they need to be pulled back so that they're completely on the property. That change has already been made. Trash enclosures are proposed for each of the group of buildings. They will be constructed of fiber cement siding and vinyl fence panel gates. Landscaping plans have been proposed and they have been included in your packets. There may be some minor revisions needed. There is a condition of approval recommended for the final approval to be by the Director of Community Development prior to the issuance of building permits. Also incorporate the comments from the previous items as we've discussed in terms of utility easements and right-of-way easements, et cetera. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans for the multifamily residential development located at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2100, 2200, and 2280 East Drexel Avenue, subject to conditions 1 through 9. And I just wanted to say that I do apologize for the incorrect address in the staff recommendation for the original packet. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Questions on site, building, landscape, or lighting? Commissioner Chandler?
I have a question for the applicant. Do you have the actual materials that are being?
Yes, we do. And we also have, if the commission is interested, we have renderings that we can share, as well as a fly-through model that we put together. I think that provides a very unique perspective of the project. If you're interested in seeing it, I believe Ms. Papelbon does have that available.
Can we have it run while you're talking, or?
Sure. We have our architect, Eric Harmon, with AG Architects here this evening to talk through material samples and further describe the design of the building.
While they're preparing, on your screen right now is one of the proposed renderings showing the multifamily units.
Grass needs to be cut.
That natural look.
So the primary material on the 11, 15, and 20 unit buildings would be this Sioux City brick. It is light gray in nature with a gray base to that brick form. So instead of a red bodied brick where chipping would show the red brick showing through, we've chosen a gray bodied brick. So in the case of chipping or masonry that may be raked too deep, it is a strong, consistent color. The fiber cement siding and panel and trim work would be the night gray, which has a bit of a blue tint to it. Works very well with the gray brick. And then all windows would be trimmed out, windows and doors would be trimmed out in a white trim panel product. The white would also be used on all of the balcony structures that you see, indicating the white in the renderings.
Could you give your name and address for the record?
I don't think I did, sorry. Eric Harmon, AG Architecture, 1414 Underwood Ave, Suite 301, Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. So this corner rendering that you have up on the screen now, in addition to needing a lawn mow, shows the gabling work that we're doing to emphasize the structure of the building. We looked at a couple of different ways to skin this cat, if you will, and starting with the brick at the base and the fiber cement from up there. And then in addition to the balcony structures, we looked at how we could emphasize the roof, given that there's a 40-foot drop-off across the site that has been well documented in conversations. So the primary view for most of the buildings, once you get past the first 4 11-unit buildings, will in fact be the roof line as you look back. So we use that piece to kind of carry a character all the way into the site as you pass on Drexel. Instead of seeing 100% asphalt shingle, You'll instead see the architecture expressed in the gable forms. This allows us to take that fiber cement panel and the vertical and horizontal siding up to the top of those gables. In addition, those gables would be accented with decorative brackets as well. One of the key pieces here, if we are on the clubhouse, that's a good view to stop. Right now, the primary material on the clubhouse, in addition to the same brick that you will see on the remainder of the buildings, the entry will be significantly increased with the use of the stone material here. We're also bringing it around to the fireplace that's on the pool side. We'll also be wrapping the grill station and any outdoor elements around the pool. This is the same stone that would be used in the walls around the pergola that's around the landscaped playground area. If we could go back to any of the renderings of the building, there's another one.
Speak on the mic, please.
If we could go one more, and one more. There we go. Sorry, you were better off the last one. So this image shows that the roof lines are the primary vision for what you see as you approach the building once you pass those 11 units buildings. The other details on the building, in addition to the brick and the fiber cement, is the additional accessorizing that we're doing throughout with the carriage-style garage doors. The garage doors will have this similar shaker style as we are doing on the entry doors to continue that character, whether you're on the front, sides, or back of the building. We don't have the liberty here of having two-sided architecture that only faces the road on one side. Instead, we have four-sided, which is visible from all points on site. A couple other details for the material would just be that the railings would be white and consistent with the fiber cement trim. The windows, again, will be white with an inset grid pattern on the upper window sash. These are a cottage-style window, so it's 1/3, 2/3 in the arrangement. And then lastly is the use of the decorative mailboxes. So in lieu of just plain boxes on the corners, we've used a decorative base and top piece wrapping around that matches the character of the overall buildings.
Okay. Mr. Chandler?
For the brick, does it meet the 4-inch thickness?
It does. It's a full body brick.
Thank you.
Other questions? Alderman Bekavich?
I guess it's more of a comment. The fiber cement board, we go through this every now and then. It's an acceptable material. Given the design of these particular breakup of it, I think it's justified use. Yes.
I don't believe that your mic is picking up your comments.
I'm sorry. I guess I'll just kind of start over. I'm addressing the fiber cement and its acceptable use in this particular project. I myself, we've gone through this a couple of times. I find it in the design aspect on these buildings in conjunction with the brick that I think there's a good balanced amount, and I would consider it an acceptable material to meet the minimum. I actually really like the design of this and the breakout, the way it's been done with the brick, the stone, and particularly I like the white trim. I guess maybe I'm just a huge fan of the color combination. I like the layout of it. I think it's a very classical look. I think the gable look is very timeless. Really gives it that neighborhood feeling. So I'm really liking what I see right here. So I guess the only other questions I'd have is maybe for the fire department with anything they have regarding these buildings, turnarounds, hydrants, or if we're overlooking something material-wise.
Mike Kresick, Fire Department. I'll answer in some generalizations. We have spent quite a bit of time looking at access to this site, access roads around the property. We've come up with an adequate solution for the fire department, and HSI has worked with us to accomplish that. As far as hydrant placement, we did meet with HSI and the water utility to work out an efficient model for hydrant placement around the site. Once again, that's adequate for the fire department's needs. Any other questions?
I guess when just, I'm thinking that everything is gonna be done. Was the hydrant plan done for the entire thing or just phase 1 and lot 3 for the clubhouse? Do you go in sections or do you lay out the whole thing right away?
I think that would be best answered in collaboration with the water utility, because certainly the placement of their infrastructure would kind of be dictated by the phases of the project. What we tried to identify with the early phase of the project is that there was adequate hydrant placement for those structures, while also identifying that the hydrants needed to be in place prior to the buildings going above grade. And I feel we've accomplished that. One feature that we did note, on the western side of the portion, there is an access road going from the north to the south. That's an integral piece that will be part of the initial phase to allow fire department access throughout. I guess it'd be best explained as if you split the property in half, with the northwest corner being the later phase, that road that progresses north to south would be included in phase 1. Probably didn't do a good job of explaining that, but
I think I got you. I know which road you're talking about. Okay.
Commissioner Dickman?
Not so much the buildings or anything. As we scan through these drawings, I happen to notice a couple of these that shows a car parked in the driveway, a short car that almost blocks the sidewalk. And, you know, I know that we're always concerned with the sidewalks and people walking. I've been in some subdivisions, not Knoll Creek, but in other areas where with the short driveways, people have a long pickup truck or something, you know, these are so big. And what you're doing is you walk and then you have to walk out into the street to go around to get back on the sidewalk. How much room is there really from the front of the garage to the sidewalk?
The typical length is 18 feet to match a parking stall. That is not met in all conditions, but those areas where they are not met is on the north side of the property line, or sorry, not north side of the property line, but instead on the property nearest the floodplain area. Those do not meet the full 18, but it's not in a heavily trafficked area. It would be primarily just for the 4 or 5 apartments that are back there.
I'm more concerned with the people walking on the sidewalk, that the vehicles would be too far back. 18 feet, I'm sure, would be adequate, I think, for almost anything, but
That
some
is
of these
the
short ones
length
might
of a standard parking stall.
If I'm standing across the street on Drexel Avenue and I'm looking towards your development, what do I see?
So after the fly-through goes over the top and kind of gives a strong overview, we come and we swoop down to the point where we are entering into the site off of Drexel. There is not actually sky below the grade, that's just the program. So at this point right here, if we could pause that. Oh, doesn't like to pause. This is the primary view coming off of Drexel. So what you're getting is, I don't know if you want to call it the front or the back of these buildings, but you're getting the front shot of the first 2 11-unit buildings, so presenting the best face of those buildings. And then you're getting the entry and corner sequence of the clubhouse as your primary view coming in. And then this video also shows, as I mentioned, that as you get further back into the site, your primary experience is of the roof lines as the grade steps down about 40 feet.
Front to back is a 40-foot drop.
I believe that's the number.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Chandler?
Question. I noticed there's a steel fence in our packet. What locations will have this fence?
That fencing would be for locations where we have retaining walls.
And also, oh,
And those are the thicker black lines that you see like on the north, right where the cursor is right now. There's a retaining wall right there up against the floodplain. Yep, right there. No retaining walls around the clubhouse, but if you scroll down, this plan does show one at the far west end of the site. There's actually a potential that one could be eliminated based on grading.
Also, for the entrance, the decorative entry columns, can you show us that again? The location of these columns, are there just two?
Yes, there are two. They flank
And
the
that's
entrance.
the entrance we just went over?
There's,
Correct.
Okay.
there's four. There's
Two at each entrance.
So on either side of the road off of Drexel, there's one, these two little boxes here. And then we talked about moving the other two to be about right here on either side of this drive.
And will that also have a monument sign?
No, that will not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dickman?
Could I follow up on that a little bit? We had talked earlier, Kerry, about whether the monument sign should be illuminated or not. We had to, talk about it, bring it up. So my question on those columns, it looked like there were some like little lanterns on top. If the monument sign did have illumination, would those be lit up also?
I could honestly tell you that that's one of the pieces that's probably the most in limbo, is the top of that column. We picture a lit lantern that would signify the entry, but it depends on a lot of the approvals that we get here today.
Does the applicant have a preference on illuminating the monument sign?
Yeah, our preference is that it is a lit sign. This is not going to be overly bright. What we had proposed in your packet was a backlit sign, which kind of gives it a nice, soft, subtle glow, which I think could actually be a very attractive feature for the entrance.
Okay. I would agree that it should be lit. Alderman Guzikowski.
I'm just looking at the overall plans, and I'm really pleased with how things have come together. I do agree with Commissioner Dickman on some of the parking stall areas that seem to be a little tight, but all in all, it's part of the nature of the beast, I think, right now. So overall, it's a really good looking plan.
Mr. Johnston?
I just want to comment too, one thing that didn't show up in the flyby, but the plans reflect, they did go ahead and add the curb and gutter to the project. So thank you. There's sidewalks that connect all the way through here on the kind of the T roads, and also a curb and gutter on those roads. So
Mr. Degner will be happy about that sidewalk piece. And you're happy about that curb and gutter.
about the curb.
Win, win, win. You guys listened. Anybody else? On up. Have your form. Mr. Miranda?
Tony Miranda, 7675 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't know if this is the proper time to bring it up or not, but the retention pond. I was wondering if it would be possible to put some type of water aeration system in there, seeing as that it's so close to residential properties. The threats of mosquitoes in there would be pretty bad. And we don't know what that new mosquito down south is going to do, if it's going to migrate here or not. But I think that would be an option that we should be looking at.
Okay. Any comments, Brian, on that?
The vast majority of detention ponds in the city do not have any aeration that are in residential subdivisions, in apartment complexes, in condo complexes. I can only think of a couple that do have aeration. Always a concern, but usually there is enough motion in the water because it's not just stagnant water that's there, that mosquitoes are not an issue. Usually when you have the stagnant water, it doesn't have any movement to it.
How is there going to be movement in the water?
Just air movements, wind movements.
The water is below the air passage.
But there's still movement on that water. Around the edge, yes.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you. No other questions or comments? Motion on 5H.
Bukovic will make a motion that the Plan Commission approve the site and landscape and building plans.
Dan, excuse me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me give you the updated recommendation here.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Bukovic makes a motion that the Plan Commission approve the site, landscape, and building plans for the multifamily residential development located at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2100, 2200, 2280 East Drexel Avenue, subject to the following conditions. 1, that all building and fire codes are met. 2, that all parking stalls meet the required setback per the approved conditions and restrictions. 3, that all decorative entry columns are revised to a maximum height of 6 feet located outside of the roads, right-of-way, and vision triangles and meet all setback requirements. Do you want me to note that we're going to okay illumination for that?
If you would, please.
And also, they will be allowed to be illuminated as per the electrical inspector. Should I mention the monument sign too?
Yeah.
Monument sign.
Is it down the way?
I don't think I have that in here, but I will make a note of that as well.
Okay, we'd also like to include illumination of the monument sign in condition 3. 4, that all the exterior stone and brick veneer meets the minimum 4-inch thick requirement per code. 5, that all revised plans, site, building, landscape, lighting, details, etc. are submitted in digital paper formats for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications. 6, that all mechanical equipment, ground, building, and rooftop is screened from view. 7, that the final site, grading, drainage, and stormwater management plans are approved by the engineering department. 8, that all water and sewer utility connections are coordinated with Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility. And 8, that the final photometric and lighting plan is approved by the electrical inspector prior to the issuance of building permits.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Bukovic, aye.
Sweetie, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Moving to 5I, it's the zoning text amendment for the proposed amendments to the general development plan, regulating plan for the Drexel Town Square mixed-use plan development district to allow a drive-through, drive-up facility, excuse me, for the B5 building in the mixed-use sub-district Block B as a conditional use, and to allow drive-through, drive-up facilities for financial institutions, drugstores, pharmacies, and restaurants as conditional uses in the mixed-use sub-district for buildings B5, B1, B2, C1, and C2 located at 7940 South 6th Street, 7901 South Main Street, and 7902 South Main Street, tax key numbers as listed. Carrie.
As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, this actually affects pretty much 3 properties in Drexel Town Square. 1, the one that's highlighted on the screen right now, that is the proposed location for the B5 building. The one that's on the screen now is the location of the proposed B1 buildings. And then, of course, the proposed location of the C1 building. Can't see it on the screen, but this is the part of the existing DTS MUPDD document that will be amended. It's driveways and drive-throughs, and the additional drive-through considerations on page 7. The current text says, drive-through facilities are allowed only in the perimeter commercial subdistrict, the large format retail subdistrict, the northern edge of the mixed-use subdistrict in Block B and Block C, which are buildings B1, B2, C1, and C2, and the library book drop-off. The proposal is for the text to read, drive-through facilities are allowed only in the perimeter commercial subdistrict, the large format retail subdistrict, the northern edge of the mixed-use subdistrict in Block B, buildings B5, B1, and B2, and Block C, buildings C1 and C2, and the library book drop-off. The next section of text that would be changed currently reads, due to the prominent location, although allowable, drive-up windows and lanes for buildings B1, B2, C1, and C2 will be held to the following requirements. The proposal is to have the text read, due to the prominent location, although allowable, drive-up windows and lanes for buildings B5, B1, B2, C1, and C2 will be held to the following requirements. Currently, the text reads, quantity and width, drive-up lanes in the mixed-use subdistrict are limited to 1 per tenant, lane width to meet standard local code requirements. The proposal is for the text to read, quantity and width, Drive-up lanes in the mixed-use sub-district are limited to one per building. Lane width to meet standard local code requirements. We also propose to update the existing land use regulations in Table 1 to make it clear where the drive-through and drive-up facilities in the mixed-use district are proposed. Currently, it doesn't call out the specific buildings that the text does. What the proposal would do is actually make that clear by adding an asterisk and an explanation for the 3 locations in the mixed-use subdistrict where drive-through facilities are mentioned. Those are financial institutions, drugstores and pharmacies, and restaurants. Those would be clarified to be allowed in the B5, B1, B2, C1, and C2 buildings only. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the additional drive-through considerations section and Table 1 land use regulations in the Drexel Town Square Mixed Use Plan Development District General Development Plan and Regulating Plan be amended as presented after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
The last meeting, we debated for at least an hour on the financial institution drive-up window. What is this proposal doing to that discussion?
That allows it for the B5 building.
And is that the building that we talked about?
That is correct.
That's
It
the
allows
only thing that it does.
What it does is it specifies that B5 is now included in that group of buildings where a drive-up or a drive-through window would be allowed as a conditional use for financial institutions, drugstores or pharmacies, or restaurants with drive-up or drive-through facilities. So in other words, it adds a B5 to the mix of buildings that would allow that.
I don't remember restaurants coming up in last meeting's discussion.
No, this is actually clarifying something in the land use table. We did talk about the land use table and how it doesn't specify the buildings that the text does. This just clarifies it.
Okay. Alderman Makevich?
We discussed this pretty long and hard, and we really found no point of drive-throughs at C1, C2, B1, and B2. Now, clearly it's already in there. Am I correct in stating that?
Correct.
But there's really no practical way to make those drive-through work.
That is correct. Staff chose not to exclude those buildings in the case that something were to happen that might allow for something in those buildings. So in other words, we just chose to add the B5 rather than eliminating the existing approvals or allowances.
A little edgy on the restaurant use, but as long as the financial institution goes in, hopefully with a long-term lease, I'm okay with the drive-through that we discussed 2 weeks ago on that one.
So maybe I can clarify a little bit better. Table 1 right now for the land use regulations currently has restaurants with drive-through facilities allowed in the mixed-use district. The only change that is being proposed is that this table clarifies the specific buildings that are allowed.
Correct. And the only building possible as of right now to have that drive-through option would be Building 5, which is what we're allowing for the financial institution, and you're now including that building with this other subset group.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I wanted to make sure. Did I understand that, Doug? You look pissed. Oh, I am? Oh. I think it's your mic, too. Oh, sorry about that. I'm done talking. Boy, you came charging the podium. I'm like, holy cow.
I almost
There's
had to
some
call
aggression.
security. Wasn't sure where he was going with that.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding.
Commissioner
correctly.
Sieber.
Yeah, I have a question with a single building that has multi-tenants. I get a little worried that you may have more than one of the tenants would like to have a drive-up or drive-through window. And that's the scary part I can see. I can see having one, but if you have 2 tenants that would like to have that, then I get a little concerned about especially the safety aspect.
We considered that, and the reason that we chose the proposed text was in consideration of that particular concern. It's why we're limiting it to 1 per building rather than 1 per tenant. In other words, you would only be allowed to have 1 drive-up or drive-through facility in the 1 building. So if you have
No multiple drive-throughs in
That's
one
correct.
building.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but the way we've been going, that a number of these people come up and say, well, gee, I'd like to add this, I'd like to do that. And,
First one in. This
I
allows
know.
one per building.
okay,
Mr. Dickman?
Final piece of the puzzle is the next item we have, right?
That's correct.
Which is 5J, which just says, which tells you that there is only the financial institution with a drive-through.
Correct.
They're limited. So if anything else came up, it would have to come before us anyways, correct?
It would require another text amendment at this point because we're only allowing one
Okay.
drive-up, or drive-through window per building.
Okay.
Mr. Johnston?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Kerry, but this also states that for the mixed-use district, it is a conditional use to allow a drive-through.
That is
So
correct.
it'd have to come back through the Plan Commission to get that approval regardless of what it is.
Correct.
Good clarification. Other questions? Motion.
David shall recommend that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council that the additional drive-through considerations section and Table 1 land use regulations in the Drexel Town Square Mixed-Use Plan Development District General Development Plan and Regulating Plan be amended as presented after a public hearing.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
David Chai.
Scooty, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
And the last item tonight is a conditional use permit request submitted by Blair Williams. I should say the recently haircutted Blair Williams, Wired Properties, for a conditional use permit for a financial institution with drive-through, drive-up facility in the B5 building at 7940 South 6th Street. Tax key number 813-9054. Carrie?
This is the building that we were just discussing. It is for the B5 Western tenant to have a drive-up window with a drive-through lane. Specifics related to hours of operation, number of employees per shift, and related business operations are currently being finalized. Those are usually things that we have as part of the conditions and restrictions, but those things are still being talked through. Information supplied by the applicant during the site and building plan review indicates that an estimated 20 employees per shift would be on site for the entire B5 building, and parking was approved as presented in the site plan review. Proposed conditions and restrictions have been provided for the commission's consideration. If there are any questions on those proposed conditions and restrictions, I'd be happy to discuss those. I do want to point out that there is something in here on page 7 of 8 in section X, permitted uses, one financial institution with one drive-through lane and one drive-up window. It's very clear.
Crystal?
There is also one other thing that I've highlighted on page 3 of 8, section 4J. Service and loading shall not occur in the drive-through lane during business hours for any tenant in the B5 building. My intention with that restriction was to prevent any possible conflict during business hours with the drive-through operation and potential loading, although we did hear during the site plan review that loading would not occur on that side of the building. It's just a precaution. It's up to the Plan Commission whether or not you want to allow that in the conditions and restrictions. Staff's recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit and adopts the conditions and restrictions for the conditional use permit, allowing a financial institution with a drive-through, drive-up facility located at 7940 South 6th Street after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Open it up for questions. Mr. Dickman?
The item you highlighted about the service and loading, during business hours shall not be allowed. I think that's a good idea. We should leave it in there.
I have a question. for the
Commissioner Chandler?
applicant.
Applicant, come forward. Mr. Blair Williams, come forward, please. Name and address for the record.
Blair Williams, Wired Properties, 2022 East North Avenue, Milwaukee, 53202.
Can you provide a little more information on the hours of operation and the traffic that will be in this area?
Not all of the tenant spaces have been leased to date. The hours of operation will vary meaningfully by tenant and use. The tenants that we have currently had extended conversations with, including the financial institution, would have what I would characterize as traditional retail business hours. opening in the morning and closing in the early evening. It is possible that in the other buildings, we actually have one space, as you may recall, has the pergola that extends to the south. We'd like to find a restaurant for that building. So in that building, I would expect that those hours may be somewhat more extended.
Then the traffic details about quantities of customers specifically for the financial institution.
I don't actually have a good kind of quantitative answer for that, other than exactly what you would expect to see at a retail bank. They refer to those as their retail locations. It's folks coming to drop off checks for deposit and to potentially withdraw money. Steady but not overwhelming. I mean, I would expect it to be somewhat rare that there would be a meaningful number of cars queued in that drive-up lane.
Thank you.
Mr. Siebert?
Yeah, I have a question for you. What if you can't get a financial tenant for that building or part of that building?
They are our first tenant, and we've specifically done all of this because of them. So we have that tenant in hand, and with these approvals, we will execute a lease.
So you have a definite tenant for that?
We have a specific tenant for that space.
Okay. The reason I mention that is that if you look around within a 1 mile square, we've got 10 financial institutions, banks, within a mile radius of this. You got a bank coming up on the east side of Drexel Town Square. You've got them in Myers. I'm just saying that you've got some competition, and that's why I question that.
Yeah, this is a very strong institution. They're very, very familiar with the Oak Creek market. I think one of the things that's also true when you look at the amount of economic activity that a development like Drexel Town Square creates, if you look at Myers' annual sales and then the annual sales in aggregate of all of the businesses that are coming to Drexel Town Square, those folks all have bank accounts. And the lenders, I think, are eager to get a retail presence as close to those disposable dollars as they can. These folks have done their research. They know exactly where they want to be. And we're very comfortable with their underwriting. It's not an extremely large branch for them, but it gives them the type of presence that they need to service your community the way that they'd like to.
Still question it. I'm a little concerned about that. What happens a year or two and this tenant now decides to move out?
Well, they'll have a long-term lease. They're making a substantial commitment. Banks have a tendency to spend a fair amount of money to make the spaces that they occupy quite nice. We have absolutely no reason to believe that this lender, who is a very, very good institution, has any prospects for failure in this location.
Anything else? Mr. Degner, keep it brief, please.
Just to Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue, just to elaborate on Mr. Siepert's point. We have been refused to use a drive-up just across the street on Howell Avenue. My wife has lost her Achilles tendon and have been required to walk into the facility to get any kind of transaction done. And the point that this bank raised was the fact that it costs money to have drive-throughs. And our leaders are trying to eliminate all this money changing. All you have to do is have ATM clicks everywhere, at every retail building. Banks, they want to eliminate and have everything done with they're doing the transacting. So you have a good point, Commissioner Siebert. The drive-up already has been eliminated with this facility across the street.
Okay. Anybody else?
With all due respect, Commissioner Seifert, I would say this, I think competition drives and breeds competition. I think number one. Number two, I think if you're talking about the financial institutions that are looking at coming here, there's a reason they're coming here. So, I can't answer that, but we'll take it, I think. And so I'm going to go with Blair on this one. But I understand what you're saying.
All right, anything else? Motion.
Bekavich will move that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council approve a conditional use permit that adopts the conditions and restrictions for the conditional use permit, allowing a financial institution with a drive-through, drive-up facility located at 7940 South 6th Street after a public hearing.
Hickman will second.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Bekavich, aye.
Speedy, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Seifert, no.
Chandler, aye.
Motion to adjourn. Thought you were going to the Marines.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 7:25.
Kuzikowski, second.
Roll call.
Hickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Bekavich, aye.
Speedy, yes.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Thank you for being here. Great work, Carrie and Pete. Doug, thanks for scaring us. You all have a good night.
I've never seen him charged.
We'll see you next Tuesday.